If you're ready to stop feeling like shit and start living your best life, then this podcast is for you. Tune in as Dr. Buzz and Daniela provide guidance, education, and the tools you need to make a positive and lasting change. Doctor of Chiropractic Medicine, Regenerative Medicine, and Functional Wellness, Dr. Buzz has 24 years of experience changing people's lives. Daniela has first-handedly taken back control of her health, and together, these dynamic hosts have unique perspectives and expert advice. Get ready to transform your mindset, take charge of your well-being, and discover the key to changing your life forever. Welcome to Stop Feeling Like Shit, where the power to change is in your hands.
Welcome back to Stop Feeling Like Shit. And I'm your host, Daniela and with Dr. Buzz. And on today's episode, I'm so excited to talk about this, gut health and respiratory infections. And our special guest again, Joe. We just can't get enough of you, Joe. So for people tuning in and listening, just give us a short little brief. Who are you? What do you do? And how did you come about? Tell us.
So again, I'm Joe Matovich. I'm the director of anti-aging aesthetics for Buckeye here in Grove City. That includes our functional medicine programming, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, peptide therapy, medically assisted weight loss, and aesthetics. So all things vitality, youth, better living, and proactive healthcare to improve long-term health outcomes. Been with Buckeye about 5 years. Been in this field of medicine for 13 or 14 years. Always had a love for health and wellness and fitness, and it kind of migrated into the medical field in my early 20s and been here ever since.
And what a cool field to be in, by the way.
It is.
It's awesome, right? Because I came from real estate, and coming into this, I'm like, wow. I'm going to be honest, when I'm with Dr. Buzz and I'm with you and a couple other people, my head explodes because I'm trying to learn so much listening to you guys. So I'm so excited today. So today we're going to talk about something. Obviously, we're in the wintertime. It's cold and flu season. Boy, do we love it. So, I mean, how many people are listening today? They're like, yeah, I have a cold right now, or I just had the flu, or I have a cold every week, or, every time this year comes around, I have a cold and flu. So during this time with people getting cold and flus, most common is the respiratory infections, right? And so what are people doing about it? What should they do?
I think people need to realize that we're all exposed to the bugs all the time.
Right.
So let's not focus on the bug. Let's focus on our resistance to catching the bugs. And I think people, really worry about, this bug or that bug. I'm going to wear a mask. And then worry about your own immune system. Mm-hmm. That's where you start. Because if you're one of these people that gets sick all the time, it's not, we're all exposed the same amount. That means your immune system's having issues, and there's definitely stuff you can do to help improve immune system function.
Yeah.
Right. And when we look at immune function, really there's two big things driving that for us, at least from our approach, and that's adrenal health and gut health, right?
Yep.
So we know from an adrenal health standpoint, specifically...
Explain what adrenals are, because people listening might not know what that is.
So the adrenal glands, what most people would associate with the adrenal glands is the production of the hormone cortisol. Right, so cortisol is our primary stress hormone. Cortisol gets a bad rap sometimes. People generally always associate cortisol. You hear the term, my adrenals are burned out, or I have adrenal fatigue, or I'm sure my cortisol is
By
sky
the way,
high.
Where are the adrenals located for our listeners?
Sit right on top of your kidneys.
Right on top of the kidneys.
Right on top of the kidneys.
Crazy, because when I think of adrenals and we're talking about all this, I'm like, oh, they got to be somewhere up in the brain, but they're not.
Yep. Yeah. No. Now, what regulates the adrenals, right? The hypothalamus and then the anterior pituitary are, right back between the eyebrows, basically. But they run your adrenals, your thyroid, and the gonads as well. But yeah, the adrenals sit right on top of the kidneys. Their big product most people are going to associate is going to be cortisol, right? Now you also have
that's the fight or flight mechanism, right?
So cortisol is our primary stress hormone. Like a lot of people think that cortisol is a bad word. Cortisol serves a lot of important functions. So it modulates the immune system. It influences bioenergetics, basically sugar metabolism, what our body relies on as its primary fuel source. It can influence thermogenics. It influences the production of epinephrine and norepinephrine, or noradrenaline from the adrenal medulla. So a lot of times what we see with patients is it's not that they have too much or too little all the time, it's they don't have a right amount at the right time of day, or something has gone on from a chronic stress standpoint that is causing the whole communication loop to be misregulated. So now adrenals all over the place. Maybe it's too high, cortisol's too high in the morning, and doesn't climb when they wake up. It crashes in the afternoon, and then it's high before they go to bed, right?
Yeah.
And you'll see that impact is a lot of different things. We'll see, changes in mood and sense of well-being. We'll see changes in metabolic function, weight gain, propensity for insulin resistance, and muscle wasting. But specifically in regards to what we're looking at today, we're talking about misregulation of the immune system, right? So we know that, again, cortisol is going to influence general immunologic function. It regulates secretory IgA production, which is our big, robust immunoglobulin, our big defender. So the first thing we look at is, one, we have misregulation of immune system and drops in immunoglobulin production, right? So weaken immune health and then poor production of immunoglobulins to defend us, okay? Well,
that's like the first line of defense, right?
Right. Yeah. First line of defense. And then we look at, the second thing we talked about was the microbiome, the gut. Well, a lot of times adrenal dysfunction is causal for the gut because then we have suppressed immune system, drops in immunoglobulin production. We've just put our GI tract in a perfectly susceptible state to pick up pathogens, pick up bad bugs in the gut, right? So when we look at optimizing immune function, we're looking at, what does that mean? What are the things that we can actively or functionally work on that's going to improve immune response or protect us? And that's optimize adrenal function, right? Or stabilizing them or correcting them if they're off. And two, optimizing the microbiota and the GI tract health, right? Because that's really where immune response is going to stem from.
Yeah.
So for people following, so basically kind of what you're saying here is if when you are stressed out, your cortisol level raises,
right?
Which is healthy for short term. Like if you're getting chased by a lion, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But if it's raised all the time due to chronic stress, that's a bad thing. And when your cortisol level's high, your body doesn't. Last priority is your immune system. So the immune system goes on the back burner. So your immune system's decreased.
Right.
Yep.
So I always tell people about the adrenals is the adrenals are like a sports car, right? You can drive them really fast for short windows, but they take a lot of maintenance. But if you drive them 150 miles an hour everywhere you go, you put crappy gas in them and don't change the oil, things are going to start breaking pretty quick. And you never kind of crash at 150 miles an hour, right? Right. It's always a catastrophe.
Yep.
So then when this immune system, so basically if you're chronic stress or your adrenal dysfunction, which we can test, that's high, that means your immune system's down, then you're more likely to catch these bugs, which, in one of the primary places is the gut.
Right.
And your microbiome. You have trillions of cells there, and it's very easy for viruses and bugs and bacteria to get in there and wreak havoc. And it's interesting, one of the things that we see a lot of times, we're going to check the adrenals and the gut, together, is if the adrenals are really far off, and whether that's cortisol is high all the time, or they've surpassed that, and that HPA axis is burned out, now it's nosedive, is generally on the gut, we're going to see that their secretory IgA is absolutely bottomed out as well. And secretory IgA, just for people to understand, that's the primary line of defense you have on all your mucosal membranes.
Right. Now, and as far as picking up bugs, well, why does that matter? Well, we know that that good and bad bacterial flora or that balance in the flora is so important to immune response. And one of the things that we've seen that's interesting as well, for example, in patients with these kind of long-term, long COVID, cases, is a lot of times what we're seeing is a high prevalence of what's called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which for anybody listening, essentially what that means is there's bad bacteria that maybe they normally occur in the GI tract, but when they overgrow, become problematic. In the small intestine, why that's a big deal is from a nutrition standpoint, the vast majority of nutrient absorption happens in the small intestine through what's called villi. There are these little finger-like projections that stick out in the small intestine, and that's where we really actually get nutrient absorption. So we'll see that we'll get the production of what's called a biofilm. Think of it, a big layer over top of those villi. It makes them atrophy, so nutrient absorption stops. But one of the things that's really interesting now is we're seeing that certain bacteria, Pseudomonas being a big one we had a case of recently, that are good biofilm producers, also make really great environments for other bacteria and viruses to kind of hide and colonize in. Right? So we look at, for example, like a long COVID case. a lot of times what we'll see, and it's really common with those long COVID cases where somebody have these long lingering inflammatory symptoms or they keep getting recurrent symptoms thereof, is they'll have SIBO. They'll have overcolonization of these bacteria and torments for biofilm production. And, from a traditional medicine standpoint, it looks like they've cleared this infection, but they're remaining kind of this weird level of symptomatic, or they keep getting recurrence of symptoms and getting sick again. Interesting enough, when we treat a lot of these patients, and you guys are familiar with this, when you kill some of these bacteria off, you always look for die-off symptoms. Mm-hmm. People with long COVID, when we start doing these kill phases, right, in small intestines, acutely we may get a little quick re-expression of upper respiratory symptoms as they clear those bacteria out, because you've got some of this stuff tucked in the biofilm in the small intestine.
Yeah, and people are still suffering from long COVID.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
So if that's you.
I think a lot of people too. So Joe, does a normal blood test adrenals or test your gut?
No, not, you can't find it. Yeah, so when we look at the adrenals, they follow a pretty specific pattern throughout the course of the day. And what I mean by that is generally, I would say the adrenals basically have two big jobs. Their first job is to get us up and out of bed in the morning.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So when we wake up, between the time we wake up to maybe 120 minutes later, we're going to see a pretty significant upregulation in cortisol. And what that does is it brings our blood pressure up.
In a normal, healthy person.
No, it brings our blood sugar up, and it gets the brain turned on. It kind of gets us going. Well, we don't need to be running on that all day, right? So then, by 10:30, 11 in the morning, it'll start to fall back down. It'll be at the lower end, low normal mid-afternoon, and then it should continue to drop in a somewhat linear-esque pattern towards the evening, because in the evening we want cortisol to be low, we want epinephrine and norepinephrine to be low, and melatonin to be high so we can sleep. So if I really want to see what somebody's adrenal function looks like, I need multiple data points during the course of the day. Mm-hmm. So a one-time draw, even an AM cortisol test, that doesn't tell us anything. Right.
These cortisol tests are done multiple times during the day.
Yeah, you have to. You got to have multiple data points throughout the course of the day to really evaluate, are the adrenals functioning appropriately in the manner they should when they should. Because again, you could have normal cortisol output, but abnormal cortisol rhythm, and it's still as much of a problem. And then as far as the gut itself, there's no blood test for the bacterial flora in the gut. That really has to be done through stool testing. The nice thing about the testing that we use is it has mRNA technology with it. So when a patient, with old school stool tests, you just got to hope that you collect the sample fast enough and get it to the lab that somebody can look at under a microscope and has a skilled enough eye test to pick out whatever bacteria or virus or whatever is still active in the stool. With that mRNA technology, which again became big during COVID with vaccines, is it gives us detectable levels of bacteria or any pathogen, virus, bacteria, parasite, that maybe was alive or active at the time of the sample, at the time the stool sample was taken. Maybe it died in transport, right? Well, we can still get quantitative values of those, so we know this is what was going on at the time the test was pulled. So it's really advantageous, even over what these were 5 or 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's nothing that you can do from a blood test standpoint, at least effectively, to get a good look at the adrenals or get a good look at the gut. I mean, unless you want to...
Traditional medicine is not really going to catch this stuff.
No, unless you want to go to a lab and get your blood drawn 4 times a day, which I don't think anybody does.
Right.
No.
So you say that the key to increasing your own immune system is adrenals and gut.
Absolutely, without question.
Yeah.
No ifs, ands, buts about it. Yeah.
And that's something people can come here and do. Like, if someone's listening to this and they're getting sick all the time, or their kids are sick all the time, what would you recommend?
So obviously, we want patients to come in. You'd sit down and meet with me, and we talk about your health history.
Go ahead. To give people just a few things while we're talking about gut health, some examples and symptoms. Like if people are constantly like burping after meals, if they're bloated. Acid reflux is really common these days. People are just like throwing back the Toms all the time. You have poor gut health. Yeah,
and that's a really good example because we see that one a ton in our practice in Ohio in general. Is we see a really high occurrence of a bacteria that's called H. pylori, right? And one of the things that we know that H. pylori is notorious for is what's called hypochlorhydria, okay, which basically means the stomach is too alkaline or basic. You don't have enough stomach acid. And as ironic as this sounds, one of the really big symptoms we see with that is acid reflux. Now, people go in and they see their doctor and they say, oh, I have reflux all the time. It must be because I have too much stomach acid. So what do you get? You get a proton pump inhibitor, you start eating Tums all day, and it mitigates the symptoms acutely, but it's actually the exact opposite cause. You don't have too much stomach acid.
You're making the situation worse, not better.
Yeah, you have too little, and all the food you're eating, you're getting reflux because the food that you're eating isn't breaking down appropriately. It's just sitting in your stomach and rotting, right? And you're getting...
And that can also increase your chance of colon cancer and gastric cancer.
Of course. So people are really, they're treating a symptom that's exacerbating, and their treatment is actually exacerbating the real condition. Right,
Yeah.
they're actually doing the exact opposite.
It gets rid of
what
the
they should be.
heartburn, but now the food's rotting in your stomach and your intestine.
Right.
So you're not going to get absorption. You're increasing your chance of stomach and colon cancer, which those rates are going through the roof now, by taking these proton pump inhibitors and different things, which really do nothing to fix the problem.
No,
Right.
no. Band-Aid, Band-Aid in the knife wound.
Yeah. So, I mean, if someone is getting sick regularly, and also, another thing I want to point out too is it just doesn't have to be coming from your stomach, but skin.
Huge.
Yeah.
So we talked about, I think in an earlier podcast, we talked about candida when we're talking about endometriosis, for example. Candida is a big one that we see skin issues. I had a family member, or joint pain, in any inflammatory condition. I had a family member close to me that was essentially diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis without rheumatoid markers being positive, right?
Wow.
So it was like a diagnosis. Is a diagnosis.
We see that all the time where
Yeah.
you're not
Right.
sure, so we'll just throw something at it.
So, but what's interesting is what this person had in common is they had a couple botched joint replacements. They ended up getting septic. They were on long-term IV intervention with vancomycin, and then on home on doxy and all these really hardcore antibiotics, which again saved their life, thank God, but wreaked havoc on their gut flora. And when they came home, they had this, this rheumatoid without rheumatoid factor, right? This diagnosed autoimmune inflammatory condition. Well, we found extraordinarily high levels of Citrobacter and Candida in their gut. And once we were able to do corrective intervention and actually fix the commensal of the good bacteria and do some eradication on that Citrobacter and Candida infection, those symptoms drop significantly, right?
Yep.
So it's, reflux is a great example. Reactive arthritis, skin conditions is a great example. And I don't think we've really talked about it, but, when people are talking about leaky gut, okay, essentially what we're talking about, and this ties into the adrenals, we've talked about the adrenals, the adrenals misregulate, cause suppression of the immune system, changes in secretory IgA levels. One of the last things they do that's really bad for the gut is they push the body more aggressively to sugar utilization as a primary fuel source. Now, why does that matter? Well, one, you're either going to get it from eating carbohydrates, or you're going to get it from a process that's called gluconeogenesis. Now, that's the big fancy doctor word for saying we're stripping proteins and amino acids from places we shouldn't, and we're sending them to the liver, and the liver's going to make sugar out of it. Well, why does that matter? Well, one of the places we get it is we get it from muscle tissue, which is why a lot of times cortisol is considered so muscle wasting and catabolic, or a breaking down hormone, which it is. But two, we also love to do it from glutamine. Now, why does that matter? When we look at all the cells in our GI, they should be held together with these nice tight junction bonds that are largely formed by amino acids, especially glutamine. So let's say we have misregulation of our adrenals, okay? Our immune system drops, secretory IgA drops. Now we start robbing glutamine out of the gut, and all of a sudden these cells in the gut that used to be held together nice and tight break apart, or they start to get some gaps in them. Now, all the byproducts of those bacteria, those lipopolysaccharides or endotoxins, all that histamine production, all this yuck that's stemming from the bacteria is leaking out because of intestinal permeability. And to be clear, you're not septic, right? Because the bacteria may not necessarily be leaving, but all these pro-inflammatory byproducts are.
Literally into your bloodstream.
Right. So now we have depressive symptoms. We have joint pain. We have skin issues. We have this chronic manifestation of systemic inflammation that we can't touch with normal means, right? There's not enough Advil in the world to fix it.
Almost every autoimmune condition can be kind of traced back to this.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it's Hashimoto's, scleroderma, all these different things.
Well, we even look at, we had an interesting case, for example, where we had depressive issues because we see that there's certain bacteria that may travel on white blood cells from the gut and migrate and cross the blood-brain barrier, right, and can contribute to neurologic disorders. We know insufficiency in or SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, that causes issues with nutrient absorption or contributes to methylation issues downstream. You're going to see exacerbation of depressive symptoms, things like that. So, when they say the gut's the second brain, that's really it's crazy. It's probably a gross understatement. Right. Without gut health, I mean, you're open to any number of diseases, symptoms, conditions that
the majority of the cells in your body in your gut, the majority of the DNA in your body's in your gut.
Right.
The gut's very important, but never, traditional medicine doesn't even really look at it. There's no, blood testing. When you go to your doctor, they're not testing your gut. And, it's something I think everyone, at least once in their lifetime, should get checked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, and that's one of the things that you and I have talked about. I know that we feel so strongly about it that we've had patients and say, listen, I am so strong that if you check this test, we will find something. If not, I don't even care if you do it, or I'll eat the cost of the test or whatever, because we know this is going to be, this is going to answer so many questions.
It's life changing when you find stuff too.
It is. We're going to get so much off of this test, and and unfortunately, and this is sad for our patients, right, is we have so many patients that come in and say, I have been to 4 different doctors. I've had my blood work done 100 times. Everybody tells me this is what getting older is, or it's this, or it's X, or it's Y, or worse off, this is probably what I hear more than anything, nothing's wrong with you, or we can't find anything. And they say, everybody's telling me I find nothing wrong, but I know how I feel. And how I feel is not fine. I feel terrible, and I'm exhausted because I can't get any answers, right? And that's really, it's because a lot of traditional medicine is not set up to give you the answers that you really need. Right. The conversation about the gut microbiota that we just had, I've had with a lot of patients, it is a completely new, novel conversation that most of them have never had with their doctor, which is really crazy when we look at how imperative good gut health is to long-term health outcomes.
And we've literally probably done hundreds, if not thousands, of these gut tests. I've never had a patient afterwards say, "Man, I wish I wouldn't have done that."
No, right. I've never had somebody say that wasn't worth it.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm not. No, that's not a big deal. But we've never had one done that didn't give us objective data of something that we could work on immediately to improve health outcomes and symptoms.
Right. Yeah. So back to, they come into the office. They meet with you.
Yeah,
they talk to them.
Yeah, they come to the office. They meet with me. We talk about their symptoms. We talk about health history. I always like to do a lot of patient education in those appointments as well. I always want a patient to leave an appointment feeling like they know more about their own health and they understand exactly why we're doing and what we're doing it for. I always want a patient to walk out of my office and know what we're looking for, what our goals are, to understand things they can start doing proactively and understand what we're trying to do. So it's a very open line of communication. And then based on that consult, I'm going to say, hey, listen, symptoms X, Y, and Z, and this is going on. I really feel like we need to do an adrenal test, or we need to do a Dutch test. And you've got these other symptoms, and based on this, I really feel like we need to do a GI map as well. So we'll talk about what the diagnostics test, what they look for. A lot of times I'll even show them a sample of what one of those results look like. So I say, the reason this is so important is I want you to look at all the data that we're going to get from this, okay? And your symptoms make me concerned with this, and this is what I suspect is going on. And the nice thing is the more and more you do it, the more a lot of times we have good predictive capability of, hey, this sounds familiar. We're going to do this test. These are the big things I'm concerned about.
Right.
So we have the kits in our office, and these are tests that are done at home, right? We send them home with the kits. They collect the samples, whether it be saliva, urine, or a stool sample. The nice thing is all the kits come with everything you need. They come with all the sample collection tools. They have the shipping information, the labeling, and everything. So they collect those samples at home. They send them out to the lab, even prepackaged shipping. I know even like the stool test, you can even schedule free pickup with FedEx from your house.
Wow.
They send them out to the lab. The lab will gives us a portal as a provider, and we monitor that every day. As soon as we get that result in, we give the patient a call. They're going to come back in. They're going to sit down with me again. We're going to review the labs, and we're going to go through all the results. And the nice thing is we really explain everything. One of the things that people always hate is they go to the doctor and they have labs, and the doctor holds it to their chest so they can't see it. And they're like, take this. And they're like, well, what on that paper told you I needed to do that? They want to see the results. So we're going to sit down. I'm going to give you a copy of your results. I'm going to have a copy of your results. We're going to go through them line by line. Say, hey, this is what this means. This is what the correlations to your symptoms are. This is what we got to watch for. This is what I'm concerned with. And then we'll develop a treatment plan. We'll sit down and say, hey, your treatment may include bioidentical hormone replacement. There may be some peptides. Maybe we're going to use the push patch. But we're going to design a diet for you specifically based on your microbiome profile. These are the modifications we're going to make to your lifestyle and exercise habits right now. In addition to the things that we may be prescribing, we're also going to start these supplements. And then we're really going to be with them, hand in hand through this whole process. So when we're going through a reparative phase, especially in regards to functional medicine, you're going to keep following up with us. You're going to keep following up with me, whether that's in person or over the phone, once a month, once every 2 months, so that we can continue to modify your program. We can assess how you're tolerating everything we're doing, and we can continue to walk you through phase by phase this process so you know that, someone's with you and watching you the whole time. But as you're going through this process as a patient, you're continuing to gain more access to information and knowledge and education so that now when you're done with treatment, you are more versed to make informed decisions to improve your long-term health outcomes, even if you're not with us, because that's what we want to do.
Right.
We want to put patients in a position to take control of their healthcare long-term.
Right.
Yeah, really, it's custom care off of your specific treatment. There's definitely no cookie cutter stuff here.
And there can't be.
Yeah.
Right.
There can't be.
Yeah. So, and I want to point that out is that I would never, if you did a test on Buzz, even though we're married, and you said, Buzz, you have XYZ going on. Well, just because I'm his wife, I don't want to take the same things he's taking because I might not need those things.
Right. And it's funny. We had a representative from we'll just say a supplement company come into the office the other day. And we were talking about this stuff a little bit. And they said, so tell me, what's your standard protocol? Like, what's your process for this? Like, what's your standard, what are the products you use for SIBO? What's your protocol for this? And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, well, if somebody comes in with this product, what do you use? I was like, and they wanted a cookie cutter plan. Like, this patient comes in. What are the 5 supplements you always use for this case all the time? I said, well, it doesn't really work that way. It's patient specific based on that entire testing profile.
Right.
Everyone's program is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no,
It meets their needs. Yeah. So, and I know that we have listeners that are probably like, okay, well, how much are these tests? I don't even know if I can afford these tests. Does my insurance pay for these tests? And so I know that money sometimes is really big for people. And so I know at Buckeye, you guys do offer some special things for people, but we do want people to understand, and I know Buzz and I talk about this before in the show, is that, insurance is for catastrophic things, right? And so these tests are not covered by insurance.
No, I mean, some blood testing you can push through, but again, what we need to understand, and we've kind of talked about on this podcast, is none of this is traditional medicine.
Right.
Traditional medicine is reactive. This is proactive. We're not trying to catch you when you're already in an advanced disease state. We're trying to catch the things that are functionally broken now that you can correct and will mitigate long-term disease risk as you age. Mm-hmm. So do we want to catch you when you've already got something wrong, when you already have colon cancer or you're already diabetic? Or do we want to catch things that functionally exist now, 5, 10, 15 years early, that we can correct now and improve long-term health outcomes? So yeah, it's not traditional medicine. A GI map test, generally around $450. Mm-hmm. Adrenal testing is $200. A Dutch test is around $500. And again, I know people, certainly, obviously money's an issue for anybody.
And not everyone needs every test. These are all...
Right. What testing we do is based specific on a case-by-case basis. But as Buzz alluded to earlier, and I've seen too, even when you have people that have a little apprehension about, oh gosh, you can't, first off, insurance doesn't cover as much as people think it does. But I've never had anybody do that test and come back and say, wow, I wish I hadn't spent that money.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, a lot of times I'll have patients that maybe they were apprehensive about the cost of the test first. They do the test, we start treatment, and they say, hey, Joe, when do we get to do that test again?
Yep.
I want
Yeah.
to see how I
Happens
do
all
it.
the time.
When can we do that test again? I'm curious what it looks like, which of course we can once we get through a cycle of treatment. So, and again, I always try to be understanding of people's financial responsibilities. I have, my wife and I have 3 kids. I get it.
Right.
I would never recommend, nor could I recommend something that I didn't see absolute value in. So if there's something in our office that we're using, or there's something that we're recommending, it's because, one, we've tried it on ourselves 100 times before, and we've trialed and errored on ourselves, and we see exponentially more value that comes out of that test than the dollar value that it takes to process it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And, if testing is not an option for people right now in their current situation, maybe they have to wait a month, 3 months, maybe 4 months.
Yep.
Just a couple things that could help them right now.
Right now. So if we're concerned about, okay, let's talk about the adrenals. No phones, TV screens, or computer screens for 30 minutes before you go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because it'll disrupt melatonin output. Try to wake up at the same time every day. Lots of natural sunlight as much as possible, preferably early in the morning. Minimize caffeine and alcohol dependency.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
As far as the gut, reduce sugar, bad bacteria, yeast, love sugar. So eliminate the refined sugar from your diet. Eliminate the refined food in general. Not everybody is gluten intolerant, but I see a lot of people that are gluten reactive. I also don't believe that there's any significant nutritional value to anybody eating gluten. So even if you're not reactive to it, there's nothing wrong with eliminating gluten from the diet.
Not essential.
Not essential at all.
Right.
Yeah. People, well, I'm not gluten intolerant. Okay, well, what is it doing for you?
Right.
So that's really changing the mindset of food. Why are we eating? Are we eating for pleasure? Are we eating for purpose? Right? And you can eat the right foods and still really enjoy. I know all 3 of us like good food.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But it's whole fruits and veggies, good sources of beef. If you can get grass-fed beef, or maybe find a good, get outside of the normal grocery store market and getting your red meat that looks like it came out of a spaghetti processor type of thing. But eliminate grains, eliminate sugars, eliminate processed foods. Really, most of your grocery shopping can happen on the outside of the store. If you're buying a bunch of stuff down the aisles, then you're probably buying wrong, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So that's really great. And for people that are at home and they're like, well, I take supplements, I take a probiotic.
Yeah.
So they can take supplements, right?
Supplements are great, and if you wanted some, things that are universal that most people would do great with, right? Vitamin D, everybody needs it,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Vitamin C is great for immune support, it's good for immune system. Magnesium is great for adrenal health. Omega-3 fatty acids not only help with lipid metabolism, but they have reduced or anti-inflammatory properties to them. Zinc's great for immune system as well. A good methylated B complex would be great. Probiotics can be good.
Mm-hmm.
I generally am a little more reserved about recommending a broad spectrum probiotic to everybody.
It's a slippery slope.
It's
Because
a
some of the
slippery
bad
slope.
bacteria like those things too.
Right. Or, we see a lot of times, we see specific overgrowths that unfortunately a lot of lactobacillus will exacerbate. Well, what do most traditional probiotics have? High dose lactobacillus.
Yeah.
So a lot of times with these GI mapping and programmings, we may use a broad spectrum probiotic. We may just use a few specific strains like a Saccharomyces boulardii or an Akkermansia. Yeah. So supplements are great. I would stick with the basic ones that we know that pretty much anybody's going to benefit from. Once you start getting a little, and that's the difference too. I would say all the supplements we put patients on are based on objective data from diagnostics.
Right.
what that
And that's what
organic
I was going to get at is that, with the supplements and the probiotics, really do the test, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Don't take anything you don't really need.
Right.
Anything that could be good for you could also potentially be bad. So
Right.
I don't believe in just taking random supplements. Get tested to see what you really need.
Yeah.
As I
I
say,
agree.
two Tylenol will make a headache go away. 30 Tylenol will make it be the last headache you ever have. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So a lot of our recommendations, like I said, we live in Ohio. Your vitamin
Right.
D is probably going to be low.
Right.
Yeah.
Vitamin C is good for everyone. There's basic things you can take, but I get very, very cautious to just broadly recommend a lot of supplements because I want to know, from an objective data standpoint, something that's actually going to do the patient good. And I do see a lot of patients that are very health cognizant, that eat well and exercise, and we're going through this process, and they come in and they're like, hey, Joe, I didn't know what I could take, so I just brought everything. And they walk in with a case of 40 or 50 supplements a day they're taking.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And
Everyone, Dr. Buzz forgot to put his phone
Sammy
I
Hagar.
don't know where my phone's at.
on silent. And let me tell you, his ringtone sometimes haunts me in my sleep,
I don't even know what
and he doesn't even know where his phone is.
Who doesn't love Sammy
it.
Hagar?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, it's in his pocket. Shocker.
Sorry.
So, and it's funny because a lot of times they'll bring that in, and I'll be like, well, "What are you taking this?" And they're like, "I don't know. Like I saw it, and it looked cool." And half the time, it's half the time I'm like, "That's actually a pretty good supplement if
Yeah.
you need it." Like I don't know why. Or you see this a lot where they like take broad name supplement like adrenal support or this support, which sometimes we use that, but they may have a supplement and you're like, hey, just so you know, off of these 5 supplements, you're getting 10,000 times like the
Yeah, you're
necessary
getting too
dose of
much.
this one thing, Like, yeah, I have been.
Everybody, Dr. Buzz is really, can you take it out of your pocket and turn it off?
Sure.
Please.
Go.
This is like every day of my life. I'm used to it.
Yeah.
But, he's an important man.
I make Jamie crazy with my phone
Oh
too.
my
Because
gosh.
I'm always texting or answering phone
One of the
calls.
downsides of giving your patients your phone
Or
number.
is it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a slippery slope too. I was like, yeah, but she'll be like, are you here tonight? Are you gonna talk to me? I'm like, I'll be there. Just give me a couple more minutes. She's like,
Right.
all right, I'm gonna go to bed. I'll talk to you later. Like, try again tomorrow. We'll be okay.
We had that conversation earlier.
Yeah, we did. We love helping our patients, and we also love we help a lot of doctors. We help a lot of nurse practitioners. We really try to educate people. And so we want them to call us. And we will find ourselves working around the clock for 7 days a week. 15, 16, 17 hours a day for people. And it's because we have such a deep passion to help everybody to feel better.
Yeah.
You do not have to live feeling like shit and being in pain. Or honestly, I have people that are like, I'm fat, I can't lose weight. No, you're not even fat, you're inflamed,
Right.
You have a ton of inflammation. And once we get that out of the gut, oh my gosh, people are like, what happened?
If you fix a person's adrenals and guts, it changes their life.
It
Well,
changes their life.
And it's amazing. We hear this all the time too. How many people come in? They think that they're like, I feel a little cruddy, this and that, and then we fix this, and they're like, Joe, I didn't know how bad I felt. They have slowly. They're like, I got a little bit worse from 30 to 45, and my new feeling of normalcy was so shitty. I had no recollection of what not feeling like that felt like. And now that I feel it, I was even worse than I thought I was. Like, this is crazy. I feel better at 50 than I did at 30. So it's a long, slow kind of degenerative climb in health status that you see that we all fall into, where people kind of look and they say, I don't know how the hell I got here. Right. And I also have no idea how to fix it. And that's what we're here to do.
Right. So if you're listening to today's episode, we really want to help you. If you're like, my immune system is trash, I'm getting sick all the time, I'm getting colds all the time, really let us help you with your immune system. Come into the office, you get to visit Joe, you get to visit some of the office staff, let us help you fix your immune system. As always, Joe, I'm sure we'll see you again because we just can't get enough of you. And thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for having me on. As always, it's great.
I'm your host, Daniela Korth, and Dr. Buzz. And I'm sure tonight you'll go to sleep and that ringtone, you'll dream about it. So, Dr. Buzz, thank you for that.
Of course.
Wake
Yeah.
you up in your nightmares too.
Until again, we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
All right, thanks.
Yep.